the Sikhs is that everyone has a spark of Moshiach in them. And if we reveal and develop the spark of Moshiach in us as an individual, all of us do that together, we will allow Moshiach, the collective Moshiach, to be revealed. So I just want to read something from Tanya, which explains this a little bit more.
No, I just did this. I just did it.
Chapter 42. It's not in the same words, it's a little bit different words, but the idea is the same idea. Of course, it's chapter 42, so it's a continuation of what it said before. So it starts off like this. In the light of what has been said on the subject of the lower level of fear, before he spoke about the fact that there are two levels of fear of Hashem. And everyone has a spark. One is called the higher level of fear, and one is called the lower level of fear. We'll clearly understand the Talmudic comment on the verse. There's a passage that says, "And now, Israel, what does Hashem, your God, require of you? Nothing much. Only that you should fear Hashem." That's what it says in the Torah. So the Gemara asks, is fear such a small thing? It's saying, what does Hashem want from you? Only to have fear of Hashem. Is that so simple? The Gemara answers, yes. In the case of Moshe, for Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a small, simple thing. So the Alter Rebbe asks, we're on page 609, at first glance, the answer of the Gemara is incomprehensible. The Gemara asks, this verse says, what does it require of you? Meaning every Jew. So how could you answer that for Moshe it's simple? The question is, what about all of us? So the explanation, however, is as follows. I'm skipping commentary, just translating. Wherever they have the Hebrew, right after that you have the English. The English is in italics. That's the part that I'm reading. The explanation, however, is as follows. Each and every soul compromises within itself something of the quality of our teacher Moshe. Where he's one of the 7 shepherds. What does that mean? There's a verse in one of the books of Tanakh which talks about 7 shepherds. And the Gemara says, what is a shepherd? A shepherd is one who takes care of the sheep. And usually shepherds, we know, represent people who love the sheep. They take care of them. They guide them. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, remember the story? He ran after one little sheep. So there are 7 tzaddikim, 7 righteous people. Now they're considered the shepherds of all of Israel, from all generations. Meaning these tzaddikim, they are just like a shepherd provides the sheep with their sustenance. These tzaddikim provide all of us with spiritual sustenance. And one of them is Moshe Rabbeinu, who caused vitality and godliness to flow to the community of the soul of Israel. And that's why they're called shepherds. I have to just explain that a little bit. This is a concept which is very fundamental in Kabbalah and Hasidus, and that is that, and we'll learn more about this in the class that we're going to have after Pesach, about the relationship to a tzaddik, to a rebbe, what is that all about? But it says in Kabbalah that tzaddikim, righteous people in general, all righteous people, part of their function is that they draw down godliness and godly light to all of us. So I want to explain that a little bit. One of the things we learn about in Chassidus is that, which is very different than the way you understand things on a superficial level, is that we have commandments. Like now, we have a commandment when Pesach comes to eat matzah. We have a commandment to put a mezuzah on the door. We have a commandment for men to put on tefillin. Women have a commandment to light Shabbos candles. They have a commandment to shake the lulav in the esrog. All these commandments are things that Hashem is telling us to do, And they have to represent a certain idea. Let's say the mezuzah is supposed to remind us that Hashem is protecting the home. The tefillin is supposed to remind us that Hashem is in control and my brain should be controlling my heart. The matzah reminds us that Jews went out of Egypt and Hashem took us out of Egypt. Each mitzvah has a certain theme. And we learn about that in different books of Torah that explain what's the theme behind each mitzvah. When you study Chassidus and Kabbalah, we understand it much deeper. In addition to being a theme and teaching a certain lesson, there's something deeper that's happening. That each mitzvah is like a conduit, like a pipeline, that through this we draw godliness into the world. We bring Hashem's light into the world. And that's the ultimate purpose of creation, that we should bring Hashem's light into the world. And through doing that, we transform the world. I mean, to think of it just use this as a mashal. We know that the way Hashem gives life to the world is similar to the way the soul gives life to the body. So even though the soul gives life to the body, but there are many ways that this could be possible. So for example, if a person is, God forbid, not well, and they're in a coma, they're considered alive. And the fact that they're alive means that the soul is in the body, but they're not conscious of it, and therefore they're not able to function properly. They can't walk, they can't talk, unfortunately. They can't communicate with their family, they can't eat properly, they can't do anything properly, because even though the soul is there, but they're not really, the life force of the soul is not coming through. When you start giving medicine, medication, surgery, whatever is being done as a procedure of curing and healing, there's a change. The soul starts sort of surfacing. And suddenly the person becomes more aware, more conscious, till the point that he's totally healthy. He can get out of bed, go back to work, go back to everything normal. What changed? Before there was a soul, and now there's a soul. What changed was that before the soul was there, but it was unconscious. And now the soul is conscious. And the truth is, there are infinite levels of how much the soul could be conscious or unconscious. Many, many levels. What?
No. She asked what means. She asked what means conscious.
Oh.
I translate.
Okay. To give you another example of conscious and not conscious, and how there could be many levels, we'll give another example. For example, the brain. When you study something and you know the material, and right now you're sitting in this classroom and you're studying Tanya. What about the thing you studied in school 2 years ago? Is it in your head or is it not in your head?
I mean, I think the brain is like a future. Many things stay and many things pass.
Right.
So the important things stay.
But how could you say it's in your head? You're not even thinking about it now. Where is it?
It's in your non-conscious. Deeper. Like
Oh, so it's a subconscious place in the brain.
Yeah.
But then I have another question. How come certain things, if someone would ask you, do you remember this and this? You say, yeah, it says in the book on page 32, such a thing. Fine. Ask you another question, you say, I don't remember. Let me think. You spend 10 minutes thinking, oh, got it. Why does it take 10 minutes? If you remember, if it's in your brain, you should know right away. If it's not in your brain, then 10 minutes wouldn't help. So what's the difference? Why one thing you know right away, another thing takes you 10 minutes.
What's deeper?
No, you're right. That's the answer. They're both in the brain, and both are in the subconscious. I'm not thinking about it right now. But one is in the subconscious, closer to the surface, to the conscious, and one is deeper. So the one that's deeper have to work harder to bring it out. So how many levels do you think there are in conscious, subconscious? Infinite. That's exactly what I wanted to say. In fact, I think according to Torah, and even psychologists and scientists say that every single thing that goes into our brain stays there forever. But the things that are not important, we forget about it completely. But it's also there deep down. Sometimes a person can be 30, 40 years old and something that happened many years ago pops up all of a sudden. Where did it come from? Something happened, it triggered a memory which you didn't think about for 30 years, but it was there. Anything that's there, it stays. But the only difference is it conscious or subconscious? So the same as here. What?
Also, the brain has like a mechanism of defenses. So sometimes maybe
It
you know
represses.
something, but yeah,
Right, the brain represses negative things, puts it down so we shouldn't think about it.
Yeah.
So it's there, but it's repressed. So the same as with Hashem. Hashem is the life, is the soul of the world. He's always here. But the difference is how conscious his presence is. So the whole purpose of davening, learning, mitzvahs, every mitzvah we do is to draw the godliness in a more revealed way, that it should be more conscious. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu and all tzaddikim do. That's what it means that they're shepherds. The mitzvah itself is a commandment. We have to do what Hashem wants. But the fact that I should be able to feel and sense and be more conscious of Hashem, that is a result of the tzaddikim, like Moshe, Aaron, other tzaddikim, that they feed us, they allow us to be more conscious. So therefore, we can feel it more. So there are 7 such shepherds in general. Page 610. Our teacher Moshe compromises all of them. He's called the faithful shepherd, which means he's the shepherd of all shepherds. This means that he draws down the quality of das to the community of Israel, that they may know and be cognizant of Hashem, so that godliness will be more revealed to them. Every person, according to their intellectual capacity of the soul and their root above. So in other words, what Moshe Rabbeinu does as a leader, he spiritually has the power to help us be more aware and more conscious of the godliness. So when I'm doing a mitzvah, I can either do a mitzvah and feel absolutely nothing, or I can do a mitzvah that could make me stronger spiritually. That has to do with Moshe Rabbeinu. And according to the degree of its nurture from the root of the soul of Moshe, which is rooted in Das, of the 10 spheres which are united with their emanator, and he and his knowledge are one, and he is the knowledge, and so on. So it means Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that, even physically, what did he do when he took the Jews out of Egypt? He performed miracles. He taught them Torah, which means he is the one that gave them a conscious awareness of Hashem. In addition, I'm looking at the bottom of page 611 now. In addition, and beyond this, there descends in every generation sparks from the soul of our teacher Moshe, and they clothe themselves in the body and the soul of the sages of the generation, which are also called the eyes of the generation. And they also do the same to impact the knowledge to the people, that they may know the greatness of Hashem with his heart and soul. Because serving Hashem with your heart all depends on das. You know, we have 3 things in the brain: Chokhmah, Bina, and das. It all depends on das. That's why in the verse it says, Das alakei abicha. You should know God, your father. Or another place, and it says, and you should serve him with a complete heart and with a longing soul. Page 613. And only when Mashiach will come, it says, they will no more teach each man his neighbor, every man or his brother, because everyone will know Hashem. What does it mean to know? The main thing of knowledge is, the essence of knowledge which leads one to serve Hashem is not just knowing, like knowing what it says in the book. That people know the greatness of Hashem and the books. But the essential thing is a person should immerse his own mind deeply into what it says in the Torah, to the point that his thought becomes bound with Hashem with a strong bond. In other words, there's things that we know, but they have no impact on us. And there's things that we know and that impacts us in a different way. And that has to do with the level of knowledge. If I know it in a somehow superficial way, it doesn't impact me. But if the knowledge really penetrates and registers, like sometimes people say, I knew this, I heard about this, but it didn't register until this and this happened. So basically, Moshe Rabbeinu is the Yechida, he's the Yechida of all Jews. And in fact, in his generation, he was the Yechida of the whole generation. And in every generation, there's someone that has that same soul of Moshe Rabbeinu. And they give life to the whole generation. So this is one of the sources that there's a spark of Moshe within each one of us. And that's the same thing as a spark of Mashiach. When we reveal that spark within ourselves, and that helps reveal Mashiach in general. And last week we spoke about how we reveal it through Simcha and through a number of things that we mentioned. Today we'll start something new, and we'll give out the sheets here. This is number 17 because 16 we already did in the past. Yeah.
So when the Mashiach will come, Jews will know Hashem, to know like in speech, act and like it's thoughts, like in all aspects, and we'll understand God and serve Him.
It means we'll understand Hashem the way we understand the world today, the way you understand everything in the world now physically. That's how we'll have an understanding of Hashem spiritually.
And when Mashiach comes, we will recognize him because he will have like powers, like for example, to have the power to, for example, I don't know, someone is sick and can make that person better.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing will be that when Mashiach comes, through him, Hashem will be more revealed in the world.
Okay.
Which means right now Hashem is here, like I said before, but it's not conscious. We don't see it, we don't feel it. When Mashiach comes, all the curtains will be taken away, and we'll be able to feel and sense Hashem's presence in a more open way. And we'll see it more openly. That'll be through the Beit HaMikdash and through Mashiach and all the tzaddikim, the righteous people that will be back. Number 17 is about another one of the Rebbe's campaigns, which at the time when the Rebbe came out with this campaign, everybody was a little bit in shock. It raised eyebrows. What was the campaign? That we should teach non-Jews about the 7 mitzvahs, B'nai Noach, the 7 mitzvahs called the Noahide laws. Why were they in shock? Because it's unheard of. Whoever heard of such a thing, that we should go out to the Gentiles and tell them how to live, what to do, what not to do. So people were very confused. Why is the Rebbe telling us that? Besides the fact that I would think, okay, every single Jew in the world now is learning Torah, doing mitzvahs. There's nothing more to do with Jews, so we have to go to the Gentiles. But there's so much work to do just with Jewish people. And if this is really important, why wasn't it done 10 years ago, 100 years ago, 500 years ago? We never heard of people doing such a thing, going out to teach non-Jews the 7 Noahide laws. So the Rebbe explained that this is actually a halacha. You can't hide from halacha. If you open the Jewish code of law, one of the commandments are that we should tell the rest of the world about the 7 mitzvahs, which means they have 7 commandments, but Hashem didn't appear to the nations of the world and said, I gave the Jews the Torah, now I'm giving you the 7 mitzvahs. Hashem gave that mission to us, that we have to keep our 613 commandments, and we have to become teachers and teach the rest of the world about the 7 mitzvahs. So the question is, why was it never done? If this is a mitzvah, if it's a commandment, why wasn't it done all these years, all these generations, that Jews should tell the Gentiles how they should be living according to Torah? We'll soon go into what are the 7 mitzvahs, but I'm just questioning the general idea. Why was it never done before? And the Rebbe's answer was very simple. Years ago, not that long ago, if for a Jew to go out to the non-Jewish world and tell them about the 7 mitzvahs would be literally risking their life. If we go back just a little bit in history, the way Jews lived in different countries throughout history, whether it was in Spain, whether it was later in Russia or in Poland, whether it was in France, whether it was in Italy, in all these countries, if you know anything about the history, Jews lived in ghettos. They didn't have the same privileges like everybody else. It was many times they didn't even allow us to keep the Torah mitzvahs. In many places we were expelled. We had to leave and leave behind our possession, our homes. And as it was in Spain, the famous expulsion of 1492, I think they say 250,000 Jews had to leave Spain. And we were hardly allowed to live our life as a Jew. Could you imagine a Jew getting up and saying, I have a message for you, what it says in the Torah, how a non-Jew is supposed to live? If a Jew would do that, in those days, they would be killed immediately. So what changed? Now is a time that it's not a danger anymore. And if it's not a danger, then the obligation is for us to do this. In other words, when something is dangerous, then you violate Shabbos, you eat food that's not kosher, you do everything that you need to do to preserve your life. So if somebody, God forbid, isn't feeling well on Shabbos, not only you're allowed to call a doctor, or you're allowed to take a car to go to a doctor or to a hospital, but you have to desecrate Shabbos and run to save this person's life. So even though there's a commandment to tell the Gentiles about the mitzvahs, but if it's a matter of danger for our lives, you're not supposed to do it. So all these years, we weren't able to do it. Now, things have changed. You could do it. And therefore, if there's no more danger, then the commandment applies. Question is, why is there no more danger? What happened? Strange. There was a time before that if Jews would go to tell people in any other country that how to live their life as a Jew, as a non-Jew, they would probably be killed. They would probably make pogroms. Who knows what would happen? And today, it goes on. I don't know if you're aware of this. In fact, I think in Brazil, there's a very big movement of 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. If you go online, you'll see so many non-Jews who are following this. The answer is, it's really a thing which is not understood. What changed? So the Rebbe's explanation is, you know what changed? We're getting closer to the time of Mashiach. And as we get closer to the time of Mashiach, and that time, not only the Jews will follow what Hashem says, the whole world will follow what Hashem says. Jews will be connected to their commandments. The non-Jews will be connected to their commandments. And because of that change, the non-Jewish world today is more ready to listen and to accept and to live a life according to the Shem Mitzvah Noach. This in itself is a miracle. If you see a certain pattern that's been followed, a pattern that's for thousands of years, you could say this is a pattern for probably 2,000-3,000 years. And now it suddenly changed. That alone shows that we're living in different times. Something changed. That the non-Jewish world is more ready to hear what the Torah says about how they're supposed to live their lives. And if things have changed, so therefore we have an obligation to do that. And basically every person has friends, where it doesn't mean you're supposed to in any way push, just like with Yiddishkeit, you don't push, you make them aware there's such a thing called Shem Mitzvah B'nei Noach. And there's so many people that have non-Jewish friends, or they have influence in non-Jewish communities, or influence on even on priests and government people, and they are ready to accept and ready to hear, because all these things are really all the laws of morality, more or less. Yes, there are a lot of people who don't believe in some of the things, a lot of people that, because Mashiach isn't here yet, but the mere fact that we're closer, so we already see a change in the world. This first sheet is just, what are the 7 mitzvahs? I want to go through it. Yeah.
So when the people got his mitzvahs, like 7 commandments, also
by Har Sinai. No, the first one to get these mitzvahs was Adam Arishon, the first man. But he had only 6 mitzvahs. And then came Noach, and Hashem gave Noach a seventh mitzvah. That's why we say the 7 mitzvahs of Noach, not the 7 mitzvahs of Adar. What?
Why it's like 7 people?
That's why, because until Noach there was only 6 mitzvahs. And after the flood, Hashem gave a 7th mitzvah. And that's why there's 7 mitzvahs associated with Noach. Right.
Which one was Adar?
What?
Which one was Adar?
The last one, no?
Which is the 7th?
Not to eat the limb of a living creature, the last one, right.
Wow.
Number 7.
Why was it that one?
Why was it that one?
Because of the animals? Yeah. Does that have to do with like people being vegetarian before?
Yeah, there was a time where they weren't supposed to eat any animals, yeah.
But Rabbi Majeski, how, like, it could belong to person? For example, we have 7 mitzvahs of Noah, but we don't have tablets of Moshe. Like, it's commandments from Hashem. How it could belong something to person like Noah, who was tzaddik, but Moshe was also tzaddik, but it's from Hashem.
Right, even the 7 mitzvahs that a non-Jew observe, they should observe it because Hashem said so, not because it's logical, not because it's ethical, but because Hashem said so. But the reason why we call our mitzvahs Moshe, because we were given the mitzvahs through Moshe. The 7 mitzvahs were given before the Torah was given. When the Torah was given, we were given the mission to teach the rest of the world about 7 mitzvahs. But Noach was supposed to teach the non-Jewish world, and they were supposed to teach their children, their children, to give them over the 7 mitzvahs. He was the teacher of the 7 mitzvahs. And Moshe is the teacher of the 613 mitzvahs. So what are the 7 mitzvahs? It sounds like 7, but really there's thousands of details. First of all, number 1, to carry out justice, which means an imperative to pursue and enforce social justice and a prohibition of any miscarriage of justice, which means all the laws of how people are supposed to interact with each other in a positive way, in an ethical way, in a moral way. If what happens if one person has some sort of a complaint against another person, you have to have a court that's going to decide what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, not allow people to do things that are unethical, immoral. So every community has a obligation to set up a system of justice that people should do the right things and not do the wrong things. What's right and what's wrong, they're all included in these 7 things. Yeah.
I understand why we're supposed to tell non-Jewish people this stuff, but doesn't it come off as like us telling them what they can and can't do to live their lives, and it comes off very rude?
It could come off very rude.
It's like some of this stuff, like I understand back then, but nowadays people will look differently at you for saying something.
Right, but that's why I gave a little introduction to say the fact is that there are thousands of non-Jews that are part of this following, that they follow the 7 mitzvahs. So apparently there are people that are, their minds have a different way of looking at things, and they do accept the 7 mitzvahs. The fact that not everybody's accepting this because we don't have a perfect world yet, but the mere fact that there are even tens of thousands of people that accept this and go by this is in itself an indication that something shifted in the world different than the way things were up until now. So, of course, it has to be done in a sensitive way. And by the way, even when you speak to another Jewish person about the Torah, about the commandments, it also has to be done in a sensitive way. It should also not come across, imagine a Jew is an Orthodox Jew, meets another Jew who's a Reformed Jew, and says he's supposed to keep Shabbos. It's like, that's your way. My way, I'm Reformed. I don't believe in keeping Shabbos. It also has to be done in a sensitive way, not in a way that there's some sort of a power struggle here. My way versus your way. It should be through education. Education about Hashem, about the world, about the purpose, about Judaism. It should be a discussion, not in any way that I'm imposing my beliefs on you. So the same has to be with a non-Jew. If it's done in a sensitive way, in a proper way, then the other person will also be more ready to listen. And again, the reason, I'm getting to in a second, the reason why a Jew accepts when you're talking about Yiddishkeit is because deep down in their soul, there's something there that knows that this is emes, and therefore they are able to accept it. A non-Jew also, if he's meant to keep the 7 mitzvahs, that means it's also in them inherently to do the right thing. And when you teach it to them, they'll go for it if it's taught the right way. Again, you're asking, but there are people that would be very resentful. Of course, there are millions of people that would be resentful. But again, there are 8 billion people in the world, and there are tens of thousands of people that are excited about this. So obviously, if it's done the right way, people could accept it. Yeah.
Now, like everybody keeps this one, right? Very on shoot.
Which one?
The first
Yeah,
one.
yep.
Because we have girls
In every community, they have such a thing, right? No, blasphemy means that you're not allowed to curse, chas v'shalom, Hashem. No, idolatry is the prohibition about worshiping any human being or anything created, which is any kind of an idol. And therefore, any other religion, there are religions like Islam religion, they're not going against the 7 commandments because they do believe in one God. And the one who they believe in as a prophet, but not, they do believe there's a superior God above everyone. So for them, it's not idolatry. Christianity, there are different opinions because Christianity themselves, I think there's different opinions what they believe. But if they believe that they're worshiping that person, then it's idolatry, and it's idol worship.
How do you like have that conversation with somebody if they're Christian and that might be like, how do you say, problem?
The Christians are no longer so firm like they used to be. They're also not so religious like they used to be. A lot of them have doubts of their religion. They're not so clear. So again, you have to see who you're talking to. If you're talking to a person who is, fire and brimstone, and it's their religion, I don't think that's the kind of person you want to get into a discussion with. But if you talk to a person who's open to listen, to discuss, then not everybody is so devoutly connected to their religion.
There are a lot of the Christians that they believe in like the Geulah, Moshiach, and the Jewish go to Israel, kind of.
There are Christians that believe in that. They believe in, they're very, very pro-Israel, and they support Israel, and they believe that the Jews are Hashem's chosen people, and we have to respect them, we have to love them. We're talking about millions of people here in America that are like that. There's such a movement. And I think they also go by the 7 mitzvahs. Then there are all the commandments that have to do with relationships of men and women, adultery, incest, homosexuality, bestiality, all these things which according to Torah are not permissible. And these laws also apply to a non-Jew. People are talking about it. There should be a Shulchan Aruch, a code of law. So how is a non-Jew supposed to know the details? And in recent years, a lot of books have been published. I wouldn't say hundreds of them, but books have been published. If you go online, you'll also find them, of what is, according to Torah, what are the details of all these laws, what's permissible, what's not permissible. No homicide. In other words, murder is something which is murder and really injury, any kind of injury. One person is not allowed to cause injury to another person, even to themselves. And then number 6 is no theft. That you're not allowed to take and steal something that belongs to another person. Every human being is responsible to follow that halacha. And the 7th one is it means in general to treat animals in a kind way, and not to eat the limb of a living creature, which means that you have to appreciate all kinds of life and respect for Hashem's creation. And again, there are many details what this applies, how this applies in a very specific way. It's a lot of these laws, the details are based on a pasuk, on a verse. At the beginning of the page, it says, God created the world that it might be settled. If you want to turn the page, you'll see, I have it here in Hebrew. It's number 4. It's in the book of Yeshayahu, where it says, Hashem who created heaven and earth, he formed the earth and made it, he established it. He did not create it for a waste. He formed it to be inhabited. And then it says, I am Hashem and no one else. this pasuk means that anything that has to do to destroy or destabilize the world goes against this commandment. And the 7 commandments are the 7 commandments that are necessary to make the world an established world and a stable world. And anything that's done other than these 7 things destabilizes the world and goes against the whole purpose of creation.
Last one question.
Okay, one more.
The last one.
I see that the 7 commandments of Noah compares to the 7 spheres. But as I understood, only spheres are emotional. Why they don't have intellectual? Like, why it's only emotional?
There is intellectual. Number 2 and number 3, mainly number 3, about idolatry. It means belief in Hashem. That's all about understanding creation, the creator. It's all philosophy.
If they keep everything, they go to the Gan.
Yes. Not only Gan Eden, also Tchiyat HaMesim, they have their reward for keeping their mitzvahs. Okay, to be continued.
Las mitzvot no son
Thank you, Rabbi.
You too.
Thank you so much. You know what's here. This is such a long stuff. This is like, I'm going to get my kids from school. Yeah, in my work. This is like, this is yoga. I'm going to get to Starbucks and I'm going to yoga and I'm putting my kids up. So,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
yeah, right? This is, I love it. I could see it. I could see it. Yeah. I do see that you're are we gonna do dates? No, not with her, but it's not just, I mean, with her, we have to fight the camera or whatever. Right. Who just play dates? Are you gonna be here? Who knows?
Only Hashem knows.
Who knows? But if yes, everybody knows. But if yes, I'm gonna let you know. You're all gonna be. I don't know. So come here.
We don't live in the same neighborhood.
Let's move. What do you say about Pomona? Like close to Monty? It's close to Monty. That's